The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello, everyone. This is your COVID-19 local update. I'm Debra Hutchison. Well, you know, a year into this pandemic, concern continues to grow over declining mental health. No doubt we are all feeling the strain by now, but what about our first responders? Think about what they go through day in, day out, and add a pandemic on top of that. Joining me today is Brian Hoard. He is an Oshawa fire captain, and actually you are acting platoon chief at this time as well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Thanks for having me.
So you have 30 years on the job. Think about that.
Almost. My group was hired in the fall of '91, so we're coming up on 30 now. Wow,
that is incredible. Why did you decide to become a firefighter?
You know, like most kids, it's kind of in the back of your mind. It's one of those careers I think that a lot of young kids think of. And I grew up in the home of a firefighter. My father was a Oshawa firefighter for 37 years. So I kind of knew the basics of the profession, and I was always keenly interested in it. I had great respect for Dad, and I know how much he got out of the job.
Yeah, you know, it's funny when you look at your parents and what they do, you're either drawn to what they do or you're like, no way, not for me.
True. Yeah, I guess like a lot of kids here in Oshawa, again, born and raised here, you grow up playing minor hockey and make a lot of friendships through there. And many of my friends from the younger ages are still working here at Oshawa Fire or have worked here at Oshawa Fire. It's just part of that, the community aspect of it was appealing to me as well.
You know, throughout those 3 decades, certainly you have seen your fair share of tragedies. And I'm just thinking of the daily stresses of the job. You know, how have you handled that throughout 30 years? You've seen things that would have broken many of us.
Yeah, certainly there has been some very challenging circumstances, and you certainly feel for the families out there that suffer the loss. And as a first responder, yeah, we definitely end up seeing more than probably the general person on the street. I guess to answer your question is how do you get through that is, you know, the support from the people you work with. Like we have now and have always had a very tight-knit group of firefighters here in town. We spend a lot of time together. Of course, we're on a 24-hour shift now, but even the old shift was a different rotation of days and nights. But just the volume of time that you spend with people, you get to know them, and it's a second family. So on top of the support you get from your family at home, of course, I had it with my mom and dad, as most people do. But Dad having the background of being, you know, in the fire service, you know, he showed me different ways of, you know, realizing that, you know, this is part of the job. This is part of the profession. This is part of the dedication and you know, the discipline it takes to get through these things. So support at home and support them around work are two of them are key factors to get through that kind of stuff. And you know, these type of things can either defeat you or define you. And
yeah,
you know, I've just always kind of tried to focus that there's still another job. It's much like hockey. You lose a hockey game, you know, you got to be ready to play the next game. And so too in the fire service, I feel.
So do you remember your first fire or your first big call?
First fire doesn't stand out as anything significant. Like over the years, you'll go to many spans of different types of fires, from garbage bins to house fires to, you know, industrial fires. Some of the bigger ones definitely do stand out. Obviously the ones where, you know, there's been some tough outcomes that they stand out for you. And all nature of various other calls as well.
So one of them that you did respond to was back in January 2008. Was it the Center Street fire?
Correct, January 8th.
January 8th, yeah, 2018. That was a horrible tragedy. Four lives taken, correct?
Correct, yes.
So talk to me about that particular event. When we spoke prior to the show, you said, this is one that will forever stand out in your mind.
Yeah, myself and, the rest of my crew that day, and most of the guys that worked that call, heavily involved fire very early on. Police were already on scene. We had reports back from DRP that it was an advanced fire and there was the sound of explosions going off. So Center Street being where it is in relation to the hall I work at, which is Station 1 at Arena in Adelaide, it's a quick response. We had smoke visible pretty much out the door. So we knew we had something rather large. And on arrival, we did have a fully involved main floor extending into the upper floors. We immediately went offensive on it. So we drew lines, and I'm collecting information while my guys are playing the hoses to our point of entry. And we did have reports from people that had already evacuated that there were still people inside. We did have a very, very advanced fire there. It was kind of, on the edge of being an offensive or defensive approach. I felt that we had to take the opportunity to advance in and fight as best we could to get to where I believe the people were, which was on the upper floor. And it was a tremendous job by our nozzlemen just to get us in and get us to the upper floors. It was a very difficult firefight. It was a very difficult search. And, unfortunately, the people there were not savable. Yeah,
a mom for her two kids, and there was one gentleman that had actually run into the fire, correct?
Yeah, from the little knowledge I have about the events prior to our arrival, there was a young family residing on the upper floor and different family living on the main floor. The young family was on the upper floor. The young woman or two children were not able to get out of the building. And the man on the main floor, I believe he lived there. There was information that he had returned into the structure a couple of times. I don't have any details on that.
And you said to me earlier too, losses like this far outweigh the wins.
Yeah, over the nature of the job is such that people call us when there's a problem. And, over the span of your career, or at least the span of mine, there's a lot more losses than wins. So you got to really take the wins when they come and be happy for them. And, keep that in mind that we didn't cause any of these problems. We're called sometimes, obviously always after the fact of the event. It is part of the job, and it does, it bears weight, over the span of your career.
And you said, anytime you pull up to a scene, you break it down into two parts of your job there. One is to fight the fire, and then when the fire is out, there's that search.
Yeah, it's
a recovery, right?
Combination, really. There's two kind of goals for first in. And that's, fire control and primary search. And, obviously rescue comes before, but it's often in conjunction with that firefight, which is what our crews did at Center Street that day.
Now, your dad was a fire chief.
He was a platoon chief.
Platoon chief. He knowing what he did and growing up with a firefighter in the home, you had a lot of preparation growing up, as well as all your training. But are you ever really prepared for when you get to a situation like Center Street and you have to find the bodies after the fact?
I am now. I can't say as I was early on in my career, because that is, I think, as much background as you might have, or feedback from Dad, and I know that he's lived similar experiences. I think most firefighters do by the time they're done their career. But the first really tough calls when you're newer in your career. Those take a while to work through, I found. We had a terrible fire on Oxford Street many, many years ago, and 3 children died there. I was not brand new on the job, but that was certainly one of my more significant first calls. Even before that, we had a young child drown in a backyard pool. Also very challenging. And I found that, it was tough. I'd almost be concerned if it wasn't tough. I think that the mental stresses that this job and all first responders face it's part of it. I don't think that, the stress is necessarily a disorder. I think it's probably natural to have, post-incident stress. It's just how you work through it. For me, I've always, taken an effort or put an effort into being physically fit. All of our halls are equipped with a gym. So there's the opportunity every day to get a good workout in, stay physically and mentally healthy. I think they kind of go hand in hand.
I also want to talk to you about the recent Olive Street fire. You were on the scene there too as well, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Very much like the Center Street fire, we had children die in that one as well.
Correct, yeah. Again, heavily advanced fire on arrival, fully involved on all 3 levels, front and back. It was quite easy to determine, early on that in the unit of origin, there was nobody that would survive that. There was units on either side. Anybody that's familiar with the Olive Avenue homes, they're all attached. And so my crew was offensive on the western exposure. So we had an interior firefight on the western exposure, and that's where we concentrated our work. But yeah, unfortunately, for the people involved there were some young children that didn't survive.
And you talk about knowing when you pulled up that it would be very difficult for anybody to survive a fire like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The conditions inside it's just not breathable. It very quickly will unfortunately become unsurvivable, which it was clearly that on arrival. There was no guessing.
So heartbreaking. And I'm just thinking, you pull up to a fire like that, do you have a sense of helplessness? I mean, you can extinguish the flames, but you're there to help, and that help can only go so far under those circumstances.
I wouldn't really call it helplessness. I think it's kind of more so the realism. My truck was second into that. Our hall was second in. Station 2 was first in. First in officer made the correct call that we were defensive in the occupancy of origin, and that other crews would handle the exposures. So you're always hopeful in that perhaps there is somebody savable in one of those adjacent homes.
Right.
The upside and a point that I'd like to get in at some point is in the western exposure, the attached home that we were working in, there was working smoke detectors, and all the people in that home were able to evacuate safely. It is crucial that people have working smoke detectors. And if there's one point I could get across, it is the best life-saving option you have, is to have those working in your home.
How many of the fires you've responded to, bad fires, have not had working smoke alarms?
Unfortunately, too many. The vast majority of unsurvivable fires, or fires that get to the unsurvivable stage, it's because the detectors are not working, that the people can't get out. And that was true at Center Street. It's been true at, I believe it was true on Oxford Street, and many others. It's just a fundamental piece of safety equipment. It's like a seatbelt. Crazy not to have them.
And not to maintain them so that when you really need them,
absolutely,
they work, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's people should be testing them regularly and ensuring that the battery power is always there.
And know that they don't survive. They don't survive more than, 10 years you should be changing them?
Every 10 years, the current manufacturers recommend for most of them, and a lot of them are combination detectors, so carbon monoxide and smoke detectors together. in the appropriate locations. So basically what that breaks down to in the city of Oshawa for bylaw is you need to have a smoke detector on every floor of your home and a carbon monoxide detector on every floor in which people sleep. There are some considerations, but that's the general breakdown. So if you have a 3-story home, just put in 3 combination detectors and you're well protected.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to take a quick break. More of our conversation with Oshawa firefighter Brian Hoard.
Hi, I'm Melinda with Move with Melinda. I am so excited to bring to you a 6-part fitness series called Motion is the Potion. We're going to be working on 3 key ingredients: cardiorespiratory training, strength training, and flexibility. These 3 things are going to get you fitter, stronger, and feeling happier. I'll be there. Will you?
And welcome back to Local Update. Our guest this week is Acting Platoon Chief and Oshawa Fire Captain Brian Hoard. 30 years of experience underneath your belt. You often think about that?
I think about how quickly it's gone. And I think it's pretty much everybody in the fire service says the same thing. It's, when you look at it, 30 years, it sounds like a long time, but it's gone incredibly quickly.
In the first half of the show, Brian, we were talking about just, your experience on the job and some of the traumatic events you've had to respond to. Let's talk about what support is in place to help first responders like yourself there at Oshawa Fire deal with what you deal with on a daily basis. And I have to ask you, before we get to that quickly, just how the pandemic has even added to that and added to your stresses.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody can agree that wearing masks all the time and the extra caution that we're using at all of our calls, the constant wearing of gowns and masks and, obviously rubber gloves and shields and goggles and all that, just it wears guys down, putting it on. And then just the fact that, it's an exposure that, you really don't want to bring home to your family. So that adds up. The thoughts of that add up. The lack of the ability to enjoy social settings like going for dinner or to the movies or on, nobody got a winter vacation of any kind this year, which for me has always been, a great stress relief. It's something to look forward to kind of recharge the batteries and look at something else, whether it be a beach or a new city or whatever that is. So I find that probably like every workplace, it's added here as well.
All right, let's talk about some of your supports. You mentioned in the first half, the number one support is your crew.
Absolutely.
That your crew is your family.
Absolutely.
What we see on TV is not exaggerated. They are your family.
We spend a lot of time together. We have, community meals. We work through all these calls, the hard ones and the easy ones and the funny ones. So you do, they call it a brotherhood, and now brother and sisterhood, obviously. And it really matters to me. And I feel that's probably our first line of defense in support, or first line of support, if you will, is the people you actually work with.
And, not to mention just the preparation, the training you went through. They try and prepare you as much as you can. But as you said, once you get on the job, it's a whole learning experience.
It is. And I'd say, you make a good point there. Is what's really advanced over the years is the quality of our training. Our training department many years ago wasn't near as knowledgeable as we are. There wasn't obviously the opportunity with internet to share techniques that have been successful around the world, equipment that's been successful around the world, and obviously training practices that have been successful around the world, not only in, the service of the public, but the protection of, ourselves. the right way to do things, the right equipment to use. It's advanced greatly. So we're doing quality training, in Oshawa, and I know in other places. I have friends that are firefighters in other jurisdictions, and that's really advanced, and it makes you a little bit more confident in what you're doing.
Now, when you do, when you have to deal with a tragedy such as the Center Street fire or the Olive Street fire or the Oxford Street fire, there is what's called a peer support team.
That's right.
How does that work?
So, not being a member of the team, it's made up of firefighters, EMS, and police from the region. And they've all taken training on basically how to connect people that have been through a stressful occasion with the appropriate level of service that they might require, whether it be, counseling, formal counseling, or just, initially after an event, they'll reach out to each of the staff members involved and just, kind of do a mental health check, which, you see sometimes on Facebook, people are checking in just to see how everybody's doing and if there's any kind of, opportunity that they might want to have to talk things through. And over the years, I've done that myself with different, people who've gone through some tougher calls. Sometimes being a senior guy, they look to you for that kind of, I don't know if it'd be leadership more so than mentoring, but it's that first connection, the peer support group. But those people reach out to anybody who's been through these events and start that process.
Yeah, and you make a good point. As a fire captain, are you constantly watching your team? As you said, it would be unnatural not to show emotion, not to have difficulties after some of the tragedies that you've responded to.
Absolutely. I think we're all kind of watching each other. Maybe as an officer now, I've been afforded the opportunity to pretty much handpick my crew. And it's always been with people who I feel that, we work well together, we communicate well together. It is a relationship beyond just rank and your job on the truck. It's that way. And so some of the younger guys, you might want to keep an eye on them a little bit closer because you really haven't had a time to know them as well quite yet. Whereas you've been working with a guy for 5, 7, 10 years, you kind of know, when they're showing signs of things that might be, bothersome to them or otherwise.
I have to ask you about, PTSD. We recognize it now more than we used to. Is there still a stigma, and, you have to keep that stiff upper lip?
I think so. I think there's still a bit of a stigma. I don't know that that'll ever go away. I could be wrong. I guess hopefully I'm wrong. I think there's still a bit of it. And, a lot's got to do with not just the job, but, somebody's personal life. People might have financial stresses. They might be going through marital situations or, maybe a sick child at home that can, really add the burden. And finally, there's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And this place can do that. I've seen that. And I've also seen people recover from that kind of stuff. It's something that I'm not overly knowledgeable about as far as the treatment and the exact diagnosis of it. But in, simple terms, sometimes you break your leg, it takes a while to heal that broken leg. But once the leg is healed, now you can go back to doing what you were doing. I think they're doing that now with, some of the knowledge out there, the doctors out there that can treat this kind of disorder. Like, again, I think I touched on, I don't think post-incident stress is abnormal. It would be abnormal not to have any. It's just that how you manage it is the key, I believe.
And firefighters are often the first on scene. Your response time is so quick. You're often there even before police and ambulance. Is there a real camaraderie between police, fire, and ambulance?
It seems to come and go. I know that I've got great respect for each of those services. They're jobs that are tremendously challenging, EMS in particular. To me, and again, I don't have any data, but they seem to be tremendously understaffed in this area. They run a ton of calls. They're virtually always working. There's very, very little downtime, and the level of training that they have is so far advanced. The abilities they have to save life immediately is, a lot of training goes into that. DRP, another very, very difficult job. Again, I have personal experience. My brother and sister-in-law did 30 years with DRP. My niece has just been hired with DRP. So I'm familiar with the job. Again, a very, very difficult job. They face different challenges than we do.
And you often end up at the same call. You're not always on a fire call, correct?
No, absolutely. A lot of car accidents. There's obviously various different types of trauma. Police also have a fantastic response time in the sense that they're always on the road. Their cars are always out. Yeah. Quite often they are at fires prior to us. And you talked about feeling helpless a little bit earlier. I can't imagine them being on scene and not being able to get in and help people. Just because they're not equipped. They don't have the protection that we have, nor do they have the training. But that's got to be a very helpless feeling for a lot of those officers.
Yeah. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to let's move to the good parts of the job. Let's end this on a positive note.
Great.
What do you enjoy most about this job?
Oh, it's hard to pick one thing. Just basically seeing the crews. Like haven't been here a long time. I've been able to work with some great people over the years, some great teams. And by team, I mean like a truck generally has 4 people on it. Some halls have 2 trucks, some halls have 1 truck. So you kind of get that camaraderie. Some of the best friends I've ever made were in here. Still have them to this day, and hopefully, continuously going on. There's been great events. We used to have great Christmas dances. There's been hockey teams that we've been part of. We were able in 1993 to go to Colorado to the World Police and Fire Games and play in a hockey tournament there. Great experiences with great people.
Some of the calls, can you share with us some of the calls that have maybe put a smile on your face? You've walked away thinking, I was there at the right place at the right time, and I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, earlier on in my career, and I wasn't part of that crew, but one of our members did save a lady from an apartment fire, bring her out, and she survived. And it was an early on part of my career where I really got to have that feeling of, hey, we're doing what the public expects. Even more recently, our crews had an aerial rescue from an apartment fire on Prince Street here in Oshawa. And everything went pretty much textbook on that. And it was a great feeling. Like you're actually making the saves. And so that's great. But even something simple as, we've had, it's oddly enough, not uncommon, children stuck in swing sets at the playground.
Yes. You get your little one in there, and sometimes it's hard to get them out. And the panic is real.
So they're in panic and they're crying. And then, the fire truck shows up, which, all the kids love the fire truck. And we get them out, and we've saved their day, even though it wasn't, a life.
Yes, you have.
It was a lot of fun. And even some of the PR stuff we've done, like we've always had a truck when we do the Canada Day celebrations at the lake, and the kids come up and see the fire truck. And I remember as a little kid coming in.
Brian, I got to stop you there. We're out of time.
No problem.
I'm so sorry. I'd love to have you back. Thanks so much. Thanks so much to Brian Hoard from the Oshawa Fire Department. Thanks to you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Debra Hutchison. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Debra.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
I joined because I wanted to help others.
To be a part of something bigger.
To show my kids what's important.
I joined to make my community stronger.